Director Excellencies, members of the organization, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the opportunity today to be addressing the audience on these opportunities. I think this is quite an exciting conversation we may have today about green hydrogen. I'm Nicolas Lecomte. I've been 20 years in the renewables and 10 years in Southern and East Africa. So I'm leading currently HDF activities in Southern and East Africa. HDF is Hydrogen of France, and we are global pioneers and leaders in this new type of power plant that we call the renewable. So I'm going to get to explain a bit more what it is about. But maybe as a form of an introduction, I would want to share my view on what green hydrogen can be for the globe. It has been identified as one of these key energy vectors to decarbonize human activities and industries, mobility. And this is, I would call it an ecosystem. We call it an ecosystem because it will ultimately be reaching so many possible applications. The International Energy Agency has identified 3 main types of applications, which is about decarbonizing the industries, mobility, and electricity. And markets are huge. So today in the world, there is a lot of projects under development. Africa, Australia, Middle East, Latin America in particular. There's a 240 billion of USD of project announced, but only a small, around 10%, which is committed today. Most are still at feasible study stage. So I would want to look at the reasons why those projects, or what is needed for those projects to happen. So I would like to share with you my screen now to show you the Renew Stable, to show you the power plant that HDF has brought to maturity. So you should be able to see my screen now. So what you see is a Renew Stable. It may look like a PV farm with some additional components, but in terms of electricity production and services to the grid, this is more comparable to a coal power station or a diesel generator, a group of diesel generators. So basically, I see it as a revolution in the sense that we have managed with the green hydrogen to take away the intermittency of renewables. So when we look at renewables, they are a good complement to a mix which needs dispatchable, often carbon-emitting technologies. So with the Renew Stable, we are combining the benefits of renewables, the greenness as a primary source of power, and the green hydrogen as a storage component. And so our technology is fully specified, and we have reached financial close on the first project for 150 million euros. It's being built in Latin America. So this is important for me to mention that, as a matter of fact, the technology is available. Yes, we are in the beginning of a process that can be compared to the PV industry, the photovoltaic industry 20 years ago, or the batteries 10 years ago. So ahead of us is a very exciting price roadmap, where what is, in terms of decarbonization, an excellent option for so many applications, so many sectors, tomorrow it will also be the most economical option. We are on the verge of being the most economical option. And our solution being built large scale in Latin America, it's based on a commercial deal and project finance in 80% of debt, 20% of equity that you see in de-risked for de-risked technologies. So Today, the challenges that we will face in terms of access to the technology might be about volumes. Yes, we need that industry to grow in volumes and to industrialize itself for the prices to go down. But it's coming up, and there is policies in Europe and in the US in particular supporting the development of the industry. So now with these policies, we may see short-term effects that may be the lack of equipment. What is very interesting to see in terms of trade and global trade, and for Africa specifically, which is my region, Southern Eastern Africa, it's a redistribution of opportunities when we look at the green hydrogen. Europe is looking at large volume, I think 10 million ton plus per year from 2030 to decarbonize, but it cannot happen without trading the African green hydrogen. So some countries, and some of them might be in the one that the UN list as least developed countries, have great resources to produce one of the cheapest green hydrogen in the world. Europe cannot do it. There's in those volumes. So there's opportunities for Africa to take part. And I would even say there's a necessity of Africa to take part to enable decarbonization in Europe. And this is a global trade that can take place. Some equipments, the one related to the green hydrogen industries, would be typically manufactured in Northern Hemisphere today, needed for the production in Africa, the fuel to be exported. And this is a longer term vision. What I believe is that to prepare, to pave the way to the longer term opportunities of trade, and with the support of Africa, we need to look at domestic projects in the short term. And this is what we are doing as HDF, developing power plants in Africa. We are basically addressing the electricity market. But I will come to a few challenges we are facing and maybe possible solutions. So I would indicate that in the region, in Southern Eastern Africa, the interest rates are very high. And I mean, something I took away from my time at the COP was the fact that it might be 3 times more than in the UK. And it might be more, actually. There's also distorted prices where power is heavily subsidized and also made of power plants which are amortized. So even if our solution makes sense today, there's a challenge of where the price is and where we are. There's also a bigger challenge of affordability. So when we look at the Sustainable Development Goal 7, which is to bring the power to the people, and we spoke about 600 millions of Africans not having access to electricity. One of the massive challenges is affordability. So what I believe, if I try to summarize on those challenges and opportunities, domestic green hydrogen projects in Africa should be enabled, facilitated in a way to be the foundation into more complex projects about hydrogen for other applications, including export, to decarbonize our activities. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you clearly and see you. Thank you.
So I will share a few thoughts and views to what has been said. First, we need to appreciate that the transition to the green hydrogen industries, or the green hydrogen mobility, or green hydrogen power, will take some time. So when I don't see at this stage any form of competition, but what is essential to enable the just and equitable transition is that workers of traditional industries get a path to the new industries. And so this be well coordinated and accompanied. I believe that to kickstart, we need to enhance the support projects could get. So it could be in the form of grants. And I will quote a very direct experience in Namibia, where we are developing a large-scale power plant, green hydrogen power plant. At the COP, we have signed a partnership with the European Investment Bank for the project, so it's in the form of grants that should benefit the public sector and ultimate consumers of electricity. So the gap to a price which is acceptable because affordable is breached. And this will kickstart those mechanisms. Support to first projects will enable to kickstart. Really, it's about how do we start? How do we make sure that it happens tomorrow and not in 5 or 10 years? A good comment was made about the chicken and egg situation in the green hydrogen. It's indeed a chicken and egg situation because the production of the green fuel needs a market, a consumption to exist, to be produced. And the applications need the fuel to be made available. So if you like, if I simplify, you would need a refueling station with green hydrogen to see a green hydrogen car. And you would need a car, a consumer, to support the existence of the production of the green hydrogen. And so it could be a response to the Ambassador Martinez about the point about where to start and how to break the chicken and egg situation. When we do a power plant, which is about electricity, we look at deriving a small portion of the hydrogen to support demonstrator for mobility, 2 buses for the communities, or demonstrator for clean cooking. I really believe that, and we have spoken about it, you have spoken about it, that it's all about skills development. If you want people to project themselves in the transition, you need them to believe in the transition, to see it. And so a demonstrator made available in 2024, 2025 is very meaningful. People can come, see, and touch. And if you see me in this industry today, I was assembling fuel cells 20 years ago as a student. So I really believe that we want the youngsters to be exposed to better project themselves in the change, in the opportunity for green hydrogen. When it comes to, and I'm thinking about Directors Laurent referring to consumers, the transition comes with novelty, new elements, new technologies, and especially when it comes to green hydrogen, we have realized by engaging with stakeholders and the public societies that this is still unclear. So I believe that there's a need for education around the green hydrogen. When it comes to the question about lack of infrastructure in Africa, so indeed, this is a potential game changer for countries. I'm looking at the Horn of Africa. I'm looking at Southern Africa, countries alongside that Eastern corridor. But yes, before these countries to become very prolific from the green hydrogen industry and the offtake, these kind of steps to enable those projects. So I mentioned a few challenges. We need to compensate those challenges. How can finance be made cheaper when it generally supports global decarbonization and development in Africa? First projects, short term, to localize skills. Various levels of education, from awareness to exposure to training. But indeed, this is easy to say, and this is still challenging. So this is where I believe that support should be maximized, access to grants for those projects, to enable those projects, starting with lesser level of complexity, a power plant, green hydrogen power plant, the hydrogen stays as a storage component on site, to more complex projects where the fuel is used by mechanical engines, and the export being further in time in terms of complexity. I want to add the fact that that trade of green hydrogen, it's key to look at trading policies when it comes to transparency, when it comes to origin. You may know that hydrogen can be qualified of different colors when it, depending of the weights it has been produced, but the molecule is colorless, if you like. So any form of certification, any form of frame would help facilitating those exchanges. And last, I may also support the comment that was made about bringing some level of certification for labor in these new industries. Yes, we need to maybe to use examples of the renewables, what has been done, and see how it can be applied to the green hydrogen industry today. So maybe I will end with a couple of questions. One is for Ambassador Martinez. So Chile is indeed a great place where to do green hydrogen projects, domestic and for the regional market. I would be curious to see what and where would be the first molecules of green hydrogen produced and produced for. And I will be interested to see with Director Laurent how education of the consumers could be extended to the green hydrogen opportunities. I'm going to leave it here with this couple of questions. I feel I've been left with several points, but I'm going to try to be quick. A few technical points first, something maybe more inspirational then. So on this green hydrogen power plant, we can achieve, it's modular, we can achieve a capacity factor of 90% or more. So it's really, it comes down to a service and production of electricity like diesel generators, but without the emissions. That power plant is actually using, converting water to hydrogen and back to water. This is a storage component, so we don't consume a lot of water. You will consume a lot of water for the hydrogen when you want to create the fuel for cars or for the steel or for fertilizers. Yes, environmental and social impact assessment are done because it has to be, and also because we want to attract international finance, so we are going by the highest standard, global standard. Yes, as much as it will take time to transit, it's about diversifying. The value chain of the green hydrogen is different from the one of batteries and other technologies. So it adds value and potentially reduces the stress on critical materials. Yes, domestic project first. In Africa, they are more realistic, less complex. And what is interesting, a view I want to share with you is that if the power and the green hydrogen has become one of the most competitive in Africa, Africa can actually attract factories and some other industries. About just energy transition and the economic model. I mean, it's about increasing where we can the fairness in the system, and I would say when HDF we develop in Africa, we take it as a mission to make sure we maximize impact locally. And I would say the skills required for the green hydrogen industries are accessible. And so I would finish by mentioning we hire only locally, and we try to, and we do achieve a very high proportion of women in the teams. The intention is that if we are a new industry, we need to set the tone. Thank you so much for the conversation and the quality of the engagement.